Good morning to all of you. Happy Sunday morning to you. It's great to see you. We're really glad that you took some time. Hopefully you'll feel like it's going to be a great benefit to you being here this morning. I want to introduce to you my tag team partner right here and one of my primary partners in crime. And most of you know him, and for the few of you that wouldn't, Jimmy Knott has been a phenomenal influence and impacting agent and pastor for the Kingdom of God here at First Orlando for several decades, probably 3.5 decades, something like that. And he has been responsible for so much of the rich teaching content. Do what?
It's hard to believe that I'm so young.
I know. That's true. He's been responsible for a lot of the teaching content. He's been a weekend teacher so many times over the years. But behind the scenes, he's been a terrific leadership developer. And so many of the great leaders that we have here at First Orlando today are because of his influence, his training, his impact. And he's also helped First Orlando over these many decades become really good at disciple making. It's been a part of his heart and his passion. And Jimmy and I have known each other for a long time and never dreamed there would be a day where we're going to be able to actually work alongside one another. And it's my honor and privilege to introduce Jimmy Knott. Why don't you give it up for Jimmy?
Thank you, David. How many of you have not personally met David Loveless? You've just not personally, okay? Well, for those of you who have, I asked several of you, tell me about David. And I got different responses, but there was one response that was consistent. And that was, he's a doll. And I heard that 4 or 5 times, a doll. So I Googled the definition of a doll, and it came up with 2 words, stuffed dummy.
Thank you, Jimmy.
There you go, buddy.
Thank you. We're off to an awesome start.
We're off to a great start. We're going to hear from Stuffed Dummy in just a minute. David and I and families have been really friends for 25 years plus. We first met at First Academy many years ago when I had kids that were there and played sports, and he had boys there and played sports. So we were moms and dads, in the stands. That's kind of where we first met. And then he pastored here locally successfully for so many years. And every year, I would go over to the church that David pastored when they were hosting what we just hosted this past Thursday, Friday, the Global Leadership Summit. And I always look forward to going over there because at lunch one of those days, David and Corone would always host a gathering of the local ministry leaders and their spouses and just take over lunch an hour and a half and just speak into the lives of the men that were women there. And it was just so helpful for me in my journey, and just watched and respected and loved how God had used both of them. Never ever really dreaming that God would bring David and Corone here to the First Family. And began really consulting in a number of areas, life coaching some of our pastors and their spouses, he and Corone, and then helping us in this whole multi-site development stage, and then the first of the year joining us on our pastoral team. And David's going to come in just a minute. I've been here, finished 38 years. I've seen a lot of men and women be called to the staff team at First Orlando. But I say without any hesitation, I think one of the best callings that this church has ever made is to bring this man and his wonderful wife to be a part of this leadership team. We are blessed indeed. Join me in welcoming David Loveless.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thanks, Jimmy. For those of you I haven't had the privilege of meeting yet, I can't wait to do so. The first 7 months here on this team, I've tried to get around to as many groups, as many leaders as possible. And so if I haven't gotten to you, we need to make sure we make those arrangements. I would love to. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Corona and I have been married for a long time. And we have 3 grown sons, and then we have 8 grandkids. Now, the reason why I don't look like a grandfather is because I use oil of Olay. It's my beauty secret, okay? So I highly recommend using oil of Olay in all of that. And actually, years ago, when I became a grandfather, I thought, I need a cool name for me that all my grandkids will call me. And so I created this name, G-Daddy. So all my grandkids call me G-Daddy. Does that kind of sound like a cool name to you? Okay. So whenever they come into my house each week, they yell, G-Daddy, and they'll run and jump up in my arms. And so kind of where I'm hoping my life is going to end up at is later in the years to come when I become a great-grandfather. I'm planning on evolving from G-Daddy to G-Diddy, okay? So that's kind of my career path where I think I'm headed with all of this. And I just knew you were dying to know such information as that. So back at the end of last year, Pastor David and Pastor Danny invited me to come on the staff team in an official position of running all of our adult ministries, all of our discipleship initiatives, all of our group life, as well as serving with them in some other strategic capacities. And I have loved my first 7 months here. They have been really, really terrific. But it's because of the interaction I've had with so many of you and many other leaders that we had gathered together. We did a similar gathering last Sunday and had about 125 of our group leaders there. So in a moment, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to stand up and get with maybe 2 or 3 other people. And here's what, only one question I want you to share there in your group, and it's this. What's been a win? What's been a win in your group that you lead or help co-lead? What's been a win that you've experienced or you've seen in your group this last year where you just feel like something really good transpired, was accomplished, or was experienced, okay? So I'll kind of get you thinking about that. In a moment, we're going to kind of stand and share it with just a couple of people around us, all right? A win that you've had this last year in your group. What we're going to do throughout the rest of our time together this morning is that I'm going to share with you kind of the group vision of where we're going with our group life here at First Orlando and with our various discipleship initiatives. And so we'll be talking a little bit about that together. You have opportunity to ask questions, give responses to all of it. And then Jimmy's going to come up after that. He's going to be sharing with you the final details. Most of you, I think, are leading FPU groups as we move into the fall, or legacy groups. And so Jimmy's going to kind of be giving us the final details and all that. And then at the end, Jimmy and I will do a Q&A with all of you to make sure we've covered as many bases as possible for that, okay? So what's the question? The question is, where has there been a win this past year, this past ministry season, with a group that you lead or help co-lead, all right? So let's stand up and get with 2 or 3 other people, and once you share that, we'll take about 1 minute apiece. So out of the many things that I've been engaged with here in the first 7 months being here on the team at First Orlando, is I've spent a whole lot of time interviewing and listening to you. I've sat down with many group leaders here, one-on-one as well as in groups of people, and I've just spent a lot of time listening. And I've been listening for 4 things. When it comes to our group life here at First Orlando and what we're seeking to do in terms of discipling others, what's working, what's broken, what's missing, and what's confusing. So I've kind of been listening for those 4 particular things. And as a result of that, I've been trying to formulate some new things that we're going to begin to point all of us toward, and some new processes that hopefully are going to further simplify what we do around here in group life and in what we're trying to do in making disciples who make disciples who make disciples here at First Orlando. So I'm going to share with you just a few of those many things. Other gatherings we'll be doing in the future, we'll talk a heck of a lot more about that. But let me just kind of give you a 30,000-foot view of all of it, okay? So this last year, in the homework I've done, in the last 12 months, there have been more than 15,000 different individual people outside of our holiday services that have participated in one or more weekend services. 15,000 people. And here's what I know about all the people that have attended one or more of our services in this last year. If that person, as they attend here, within the first year, if they don't either get involved in a role or they don't get engaged in a relationship, they are one bad event away from absolutely walking out. Does that make sense? So, and this is true within any church or ministry. If within the first year a person doesn't get involved in a role or engage in a relationship, they're just one bad event in their life from walking away from all of that. And we want to do everything we can to help them facilitate those things that are going to really aid them in their growth. So let me tell you just a few of the things that we're dreaming of these days. Let me see if I can get that. Can we advance that manually for me? It's not, there we go. Here's a part of our dream. We're envisioning the day here at First Orlando where people are growing like never before in both the character as well as the competencies of Jesus. When I think about the character of Jesus, I think about who would Jesus be if he were me, if he had my 9 to 5, if he had my spouse, if he had my kids, if he had my successes, and if he had my failures. Who would Jesus be if he were me? And competencies of Jesus, what would Jesus do if he were me? With the gifts and abilities I have, with the limitations that I have, what would Jesus be and do? And so what we want to do is we're envisioning the day where people are growing like never before in both the character and the competencies of Jesus. Here's another thing we're dreaming of. We're envisioning the day where at least 1,000 non-staff people would be leading, pastoring, and discipling 10,000 others through both small on-site groups and small and mid-size off-site groups that are both discipleship and relationally oriented. I mean, that's really a part of what you guys do. You guys, to me, are the real heroes of this ministry because each one of you are leading, pastoring, and discipling either 5 or 10 or 15 or perhaps 20 other people. And I tell you what, there's nothing more important that happens around here than what you're engaged in helping facilitate with other people. But what we're dreaming of is the day where there are 1,000 non-staff leaders here who are actually a part of the staff, the volunteer staff here, that are helping us lead and pastor and disciple 10,000 other people here. All in favor of that, say aye. Okay? Does that sound like a good thing? Here's another thing we're dreaming of right here. Back up. Let's back up. There we go. We're also envisioning the day where at least 200 non-staff men and women are acting as ministry coaches to those 1,000 leaders I just mentioned to you who are leading, pastoring, and discipling other people. That means that some of you may want to continue to be leading, 5, 10, 15, 20 other people in a small or medium-sized group. Others of you in time, we're going to encourage you to pray about what would it look like for you to kind of trangition from being a group leader to being a ministry coach over other group leaders, where maybe there might be 3 to 5 other group leaders here at First Orlando that you would help lead, pastor, and disciple. Because here's a part of my passion. As you give away your life on a regular basis, as you are pouring out your life in the lives of other people, I want to make sure that myself and others here are pouring into you. I want you to have this pouring out effect and this being poured into effect. And this is going to be one of the ways that are going to really begin to move us toward that. Let me show you another thing that we're envisioning. We're envisioning the day where every person who wants to join and become a participant here at First Orlando will realize that they haven't found their church home yet until they're a part of one of our groups. So let me read to you an email I got about a month ago from, her name's Christine. I met her out in the lobby back 3 or 4 months ago. I was kind of observing what was going on in our connections area, and I noticed this one young lady, she was just lighting people up in a good way. And she was really engaging with them. She was asking great questions, and then she was kind of helping them connect to where they needed to go next. And so after she got through with several people, I went up, I introduced myself. I said, hi, I'm David Loveless. Tell me your name. Tell me how you got here. And so from that, she ended up writing me this email. Listen to this in light of a part of what we're envisioning. Christine said, I started visiting First Orlando about 4 years ago. I joined 2 years ago. Shortly after I joined, I became a part of the Connections team, serving each Sunday. I cannot even begin to describe what serving did to not only my walk with Christ, but my love for the church. Despite my involvement, though, it still felt like something was missing. Listen to this. She said, I was challenged to join a life group. When I walked into my first home life group, it was one of the scariest things I'd ever done before. Any of you remember the first time you ever walked into a group? It's like everyone else was a member of the country club but you, right? And you're wondering if anyone was going to actually give you access into the secret society that they had already formed, okay? So she goes on and she says, it was one of the scariest moments of my life, but immediately my view of the true meaning of body of Christ got flipped upside down. I found a family that has held me as I've cried in agony and has celebrated in all my victories. I've gotten to learn from others in their walk with Christ, and I've been able to witness miracles in the lives of other people that have given me hope for my own. This is a place that walls can be broken down and what being the church is all about. I'll never forget what my group leader said on my first night there. The first time you're here, you're a guest, and after that, you're family. What started off as a mega church and large church now just simply feels like home to me. Isn't that awesome? Guys, that's the experience we want to end up over the next several years. We want everybody here to have that experience. Wouldn't you concur with that? So how are we going to get there? Well, a couple of different things. First of all, we need to get, further clear and more specific about what we're hoping to see happen in the groups that we're leading here at First Orlando. And so what I've done is I've created, a real simple definition of what it means to make disciples here. And it's just simply this: to create disciples who are learning in community. I really can't become a really great Christ follower on my own. I need to be doing it in relationships with 3, 5, 10, 15 other people. Wouldn't you concur with that? So a disciple, we want to help create disciples who are learning in community, relational groups, to have the essential character and competencies of Jesus, I mentioned a moment ago, through the power of the Holy Spirit, and then are lovingly reproducing it in the lives of others. I mean, what we want is the hallmark to every group here in this ministry, where the group is meeting on-site or off-site, is where people are feeling the love of Jesus Christ that's just oozing out of us and is seeping into the cracks of their lives, so that we can hold people when they're going through grief and agony, and then cheer them on when they're experiencing victory. All in favor of that, say aye, okay? So that's kind of what we're seeking to do with our disciple-making culture here at First Orlando, all right? So as we think about that, and we think about just the implications of that, you go, how in the world are we going to be able to pull that off and accomplish that? Well, actually, we've laid out a series of several steps, and today I just want to talk to you about one of those steps, and it's the step that has to do with all of our group life here at Orlando. First Orlando. So I told you a while ago, I've spent the first 7 months listening to what's working, what's broken, what's confused, what's missing. Well, one of the predominant things I heard was how confusing it is to people around here of figuring out what in the heck constitutes a group. Have any of you felt that before? What is a group? What's a life group here? What's the difference between that and an Acts class versus, what are these things supposed to be all about? So moving forward from this point on, here's what we're going to call all small and medium-sized groups where they meet on-site or off-site. I've come up with a real complicated name. We're going to call them groups. Okay? Everything we do around here, it's going to be around groups. Now, from now on, when people go onto our website that we're about to get fixed here in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we really are only going to have 2 different kinds of groups. We're going to have on-site groups, and we're going to have off-site groups. We're going to have groups that meet here on this campus, as well as our new place in Horizon West, and then we're going to have many groups that meet off-site. Both kinds of groups are absolutely essential to what God's called us to do here. Many of you know there are so many benefits to having on-site groups where people don't want to go into someone else's home. On the other hand, there's so many benefits to having off-site groups because of what we're able to do in these off-site groups that are meeting in people's homes and businesses and coffee shops and third places. But what we want to do is say all our groups, whether they're on-site or off-site, are really seeking to do one primary thing. Now, by the way, let me just pause for a moment. Whether you're an off-site group or an on-site group, your group may be based upon an affinity, like legacy, stage of life, or young adult, or married or single, or men or women. So we'll have affinity tags inside of each one of those groups. Some of them are going to be geographically based, right? So some will be, in Horizon West, some in Longwood, some in College Park. And then some of them are going to be special interests. I talked to one of our group leaders this last week on the phone, and she helps lead one of our grief share groups. And so I was just letting her know about the value that she brings to the table and all of that. So we're going to have all, various expressions that we have today, but we're going to simply say we are all groups. And here's a very simple definition that I've created for all of our groups moving forward. First Orlando groups are small and medium gatherings of people who are patterning more of their lives around Jesus. All right? That's it. That's what all of our groups, it's what your group, other groups that are represented here today, as we move forward, it's this simple. All of the small and medium gatherings of people we have here at First Orlando who are patterning more of their lives around Jesus. Now, if you have a group that, has another agenda, then God bless you, have that group. But if you're going to be considered, kind of an official group here, whether you meet off-site or on-site, we want you thinking in terms of we want to pattern, as much as possible, we want to pattern even more of our lives than's currently patterned around the life of Jesus, okay? So here's the way I break that down. When I think about patterning my life around the life of Jesus, there seem to be three primary dimensions to Jesus' life: an upward dimension, an inward dimension, and an outward dimension. So we know with Jesus, he's regularly attending to the upward dimension of his life, spending time alone with Dad, spending time alone with the Heavenly Father, right? He was regularly getting away and doing that. He also had an inward dimension. He was regularly gathering a small group of men and women around him where everyone was experiencing relational community with each other. And then he also had this outward dimension of his life where all the time he was entering into the brokenness of the world and bringing the good news of grace into each one of those broken places. So what does that look like for church to pattern herself around this? What does it look like for a group to do that? A couple of simple things. First of all, we want to have a passionate spirituality going on in our group life here at First Orlando. Here's a simple definition I've given it: creating environments for deep and connected relationship with God and attentiveness to the leading of the Holy Spirit. How many of you would concur? Yeah, we want to see that happen in our groups around here. Would you concur with that? Okay, great. 4 of you. That's really encouraging. All right? So the rest of you are going to have to stay late after class, and we need to talk more, okay? Here's a second dimension, is the inward dimension that I would just call radical community. I mean, this is what we see lived out in the book of Acts. It's where we're creating environments for spiritually extended families that deeply invest themselves in life-giving relationships. We want to see this kind of community experienced by people that are coming to our groups here, whether they're on-site groups or off-site groups, okay? Now, here's a part of what that means. Some of you have been leading groups in the past that they've been fabulous in the way that we've helped people get exposed to biblical content. That's awesome. That's really good. However, can I tell you, if all your group ends up experiencing is primarily biblical content, and they don't end up experiencing biblical community, we're missing an important dimension of what Jesus wants to do in and through our lives. Would you concur with that? Okay, 7 more of you. That's good. We're making progress. Here's a third dimension. When I think about our groups patterning ourselves around the life of Jesus, there's not only the upward dimension, the inward dimension, but there's also the outward one, where there's a sense of missional zeal present within each one of our groups, where we're regularly as a group finding ways that would be unique for you as a group to enter into the broken environments of the world and demonstrating and declaring the good news of grace. That may mean finding out a need that's in your neighborhood where your group meets, or someone in your group that has a neighbor, someone they work with, that has a need in their house or financially or need assistance with something, where as a group we would get involved with that, entering into the brokenness of the world. Now, some of your groups are going to specialize in one. It'll be like the primary emphasis of your group. And then you'll probably have a secondary emphasis. Like some of your groups, I mentioned a while ago, they're great at passionate spirituality, where you're really, really good in your group life of helping people better connect with God. And then you kind of have a secondary emphasis, and that's around community, where you give people enough time to share, talk about what's going on in one another's lives, pray for each other. Well, if I just described your group, that's a terrific group. Here's what I'm going to encourage you to do in the future. Can you find a way, not every single week, not every single gathering, but can you find a consistent way, maybe just once a quarter at least, of finding a way as a group? How can you enter into some level of the brokenness of the world outside your group, outside this church ministry, and represent and demonstrate the good news of grace right there? Does that make sense? Now, some of our groups around here are going to really specialize in this outward dimension. They might be, really focused primarily on homeless issues or injustice issues, on trafficking issues. Oh, that represents so much of the heart of Dad, doesn't it? Right there. And maybe their secondary emphasis is around really, finding out what's going on in others' lives, experiencing relational community, to which I would go, all right, so how can you introduce an upward dimension to your group as well? So as we move forward, know that when we talk about groups here at First Orlando, we're going to say the groups here at First Orlando are small and medium-sized gatherings who are seeking to pattern more of their lives around the life of Jesus. All in favor of that, say aye. Okay, all right. Let's pause for just a moment. I want you to turn to a person next to you and go, here's what resonates the most with me right now out of everything I've heard in the last few minutes. Here's what gets my blood pumping in a really good way that really excites me, okay? So take just 1 minute and turn to a person next to you and share what that is. So, as you and I are seeking to lead groups, small or medium-sized, on-site groups or off-site groups here, where we're trying to help ourselves and the people that we're involved with pattern more of their lives around Jesus, what should be the kinds of outcomes that we would expect to see? What do we want to see as the result of leading our groups in this particular way? 4 real simple things before I wrap it up. First of all, we want everyone in our groups to be able to experience what it means to know and to be known. Where I can know you, I can know more about you. As I know you, where you can feel even more valued because you are known and you are noticed. Does that make sense? To know and to be known. I also want you to know me. Yeah, I'd like for you to notice me. I mean that in the right way. I want you to see that I have value. God's placed value in my life just like He's placed value in you. So that's what it means to know and to be known. A few months ago, someone walked into one of our groups here, and they started to sit down, and it was like more of a medium-sized group, and they started to sit down where one of the smaller groups was gathered. And as they sat down, they were brand new. They were told to go into this particular group. There was a person in the group that stood up and said, "I'm very sorry, but this group is full. This table is full. You can't sit here or be here. You need to find another place here in the room." We don't want that happening ever again. What I would have wanted that group leader to have done was, they were trying to, I'm sure, monitor things and go, okay, we can only handle so many people in this group. But what would have looked like for that leader to have stood up and put their arm around the person and go, "Tell me your name. Here's what my name is. We are so thrilled that you are here today. You may be coming in here as a guest, but from now on, you're going to be family. Why don't you sit here with us? We're kind of crowded in our group right now. So if that's okay, we want you to sit here. And maybe, this next week, we can help you find another group here that has even more room, that you might feel comfortable in." Does that make sense? Guys, it will not honor God if we have 50,000 people coming to this church every weekend, and most people don't feel known. They don't feel noticed. That doesn't represent the family heart of God, to know and be known. That's what we want to see as outcome. The second outcome we want to see in our groups is to love and be loved. There's something life-giving when I'm able to love you, and then you're able to love me in return based upon what you know about me. The real secret in loving is how much you actually know a person. Like, Jimmy knows the good, bad, and the deep ugly of David Loveless. I mean, he knows. He knows lots of details about my life, okay? And he knows successes I've had, and he's known miserable failures that I've experienced. He knows me at that level, and yet he still loves me. That's the surprising thing to me, is he still loves me. And I love him as well, okay? Yeah, I know, a great assumption right there. But we want everyone here in this ministry to experience what it means to know and be known, love and be loved. Here's a third one, to serve and be served. Where I can give my life away to you and help serve you in some particular way, and then in turn, allow myself to be served sometimes by you or by others. And the fourth thing is to celebrate and be celebrated. Where you and I are regularly celebrating with other people important things that are going on in their lives, and cheer for that and go, "Yay, God! That's awesome. That's amazing." And where people feel celebrated in that. And then for you to allow yourself to be celebrated. This is the intersection, these four circles, is what I just simply call, this is when you know you've got spiritual and relational health going on in your life. Is when you can know and be known, love and be loved, serve and be served, celebrate and be celebrated. Now, this doesn't happen overnight in group life, but it can happen over time. And this is what we want to see people end up experiencing, no matter what type of group we have, no matter what our objective is as a group. Over time, we want people to experience this full orb expression. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, in the future, we're going to have more regular gatherings like this. At the beginning of this next year, I'm going to also start offering some virtual online training for all of our group leaders and for people that are seeking to do that, because that's kind of been a pretty important, essential missing thing, what's missing, okay? We're going to be doing a lot more of that together, where we become an even greater community of leaders here who are seeking to lead and pastor and disciple people, both in small and medium-sized groups, okay? I'll give you more information in the days ahead. So, all right, does that make sense? If you have any questions about it, write down the question, and in a few moments, Jimmy and I will do a Q&A together. So let's welcome Jimmy up as he talks about FPU with us. Thank you.
All right, thank you, David. Thank you. Just imagine that what you just got was the appetizer okay, to about a 7-course meal. Okay, it's going to be wonderful. I'm so excited about the clarity, David, that you're giving us as we move ahead. His definition of what we're trying to do is create disciples who are learning in community to have the essential character and competencies of Jesus, and so on. Well, one of those competencies of Jesus is for each of us and those that we're privileged to influence is to deal with selfishness, covetousness, and greed. And if that's not an important issue, then help me to understand why there are more verses in Scripture related to those issues, plus stewardship and materialism and the resources that God has entrusted to us, more than some 23 to 2,500, more than what we would find on faith or on love and a lot of other more popular subjects. Why would Jesus give us somewhere between 32 and 35 parables, and more than half of those deal with those same issues? The reason Scripture says so much, and the reason Jesus addressed it so much, is that He knows us, because we struggle with all of those. That's why we're doing FPU. FPU is a tool. It is not an end in itself. It is a tool. It is not a perfect tool. Okay? There are some minor areas in there that I know that I would either say it differently or do it differently, okay? But it won't surprise you that there are times when David preaches a sermon, there might be a sentence or an element in a message that I say, I don't know that I agree with that. And I bet you do that too. Okay, let's not tell him that and hurt his feelings. Okay, but again, that's all okay. But having been through FPU twice, and knowing that the end of that is to help each of us and those that we have a privilege to influence to really become better stewards of that which God has entrusted to us. So don't get caught up in some of the issues you might not agree with. This is really good, helpful stuff. It really is. I've been here 38 years and have never, in any initiative that we have ever done, and we have done dozens upon dozens upon dozens in my tenure here, have we ever given ourselves so much to an effort and to an initiative, both in time and in leadership and in effort and in funding as well. So what I want to do is I want to take you through several bullets that specifically address the use of the tool. And then, as David said, let me get through with these, then he and I will hang around and answer questions. And if you need to leave, then just email us. And then we are videoing our time together. And then sometime in the next few days, you'll get a kind of a recap of our time together if you need to watch it and listen to it again. Plus, there's always folks who couldn't come either last week or this week, and it'll get them up to speed on the information as well. Okay? So let me walk you through some of the things. First, I want to thank you. I want to thank many of you. Went through this past spring, March, April, and May. You came Sunday mornings at 8:30 or 11:30. You came Wednesday nights, or perhaps you did it on your own, going through the 9 sessions of Financial Peace University to better prepare yourself for facilitating it beginning in September. Thank you for doing that. Some of you, you weren't able to do that, or you missed some. You're still good. You're still good. You'll be able to do this even if you've not seen 1 second of one video. You will be able to do this. You need to remember, you do not have to teach anything. You don't have to teach anything. Nobody does it better than Dave Ramsey. He is our teacher, okay? We're simply listening, watching, and learning, and then when the video ends, then our role kicks in to make sure small group discussion and facilitation takes place. But those questions that facilitate the discussion and the learning, and hopefully the transformation is going to take place, they're already in the workbook. We just want to make sure that they have time to go through those. So I just want to remind you of that. The videos, I've had all the videos edited, and they fit in a 45 to 50 minute time frame. 45 to 50 minutes. What that means is that you got to get into your small group. Okay, you got to have whatever opening that you have, probably not the normal one, because, and I'll share with you in a minute, at a prescribed time, the video is coming on in your room. It's coming on. and it'll go for 45 to 50 minutes, and then discussion will take place. So here's what we're going to do for those of you that are on campus in this building, Faith Hall, or in E2, which is where many of you are, but not all of you, okay, but most of you are. We have equipped all of those rooms in Fellowship Hall, Faith Hall here, excuse me, and then in E2 with technology to be able to provide a live feed for you of the 9 sessions. What's going to happen is we have groups, we have groups at 8:30 and at 10 and at 11:30, 8:30, 10, and 11:30. When you come into your room, on the screen in your room, there'll be a picture, FPU or whatever, there'll be a clock counting down from 10 minutes to 0. When it hits 0, here's Dave. Here's Dave. You say, but I'm not through making the announcements. Here's Dave. Here's Dave. So you need to get in and get going, because 10 minutes into the hour, here's Dave. So you need to be ready to roll when that happens. We will begin on Sunday, September the 16th. And then there'll be groups meeting all week long for the 9 weeks. I'll give you an update on where those things are. Some of our groups, especially some of our older adults, many of them are going to be using a 6 weeks legacy version rather than the 9 that really speaks more to where they are in their season of life, which is frankly a wonderful discovery that we made that a month ago I didn't even know was available. So I think that's going to really help them meet their needs. For those of you who meet outside of Faith Hall and outside of E2, like in the APs, or perhaps some of the rooms behind the worship center, or perhaps off-site. We are still in discussion, but we should decide this week whether or not the delivery of the videos, are they going to be we're going to give you a zip drive, or we're going to do it in Dropbox. We haven't decided that yet, but we will decide this week. There's a meeting, and we will get that information to you. Yeah, simple is very important, especially for those of you like me that are not real techie, okay? I would like no buttons, okay, but I'll yield to one, okay? And going back to that button, as it were, to turn it off. As you know, this is our 3rd weekend to be registering adults who are not currently in groups. All of those who are currently in groups, you're already registered because you're in a group. All you need to do is to purchase your kit before September the 16th. But in the first 2 weekends, this was the 3rd. I'm just giving you results of the first 2 weekends. We have had register somewhere around 450 adults. 90% of them registered, as it were, by themselves, but they're couples. So you can do the math. We're talking somewhere probably 700 to 800 just in the first 2 weekends have registered. To help you to understand where they registered, 95% of them have registered to meet on campus. Okay, again, these numbers are just for 2 weeks. Some great surprises to me. I'm going to tell you how many, but I'm also going to tell you how many folks have offered to facilitate those, because you're going to see some danger zones, okay, and some needs. Saturday night, one of the big surprises, after worship, Saturday night, 6:45, in the first 2 weeks, 80 people signed up. We have 7 facilitators, big groups. 8:30, Sunday morning upstairs in Faith Hall, where my Journey class meets, we have 70 signed up. We have 5 facilitators. At 10 o'clock, not sure where that group's going to be yet. We have over 100, and we have 27 facilitators, so that's in pretty good shape. 11:30, we have 50. We have 13 facilitators. Monday night, here on campus, we have 42 signed up, 6 facilitators. Wednesday night, 40, 12 facilitators. Friday night, 14, no facilitator. And Tuesday and Thursday, no one as yet has signed up for an on-campus group. And then in addition to all that, we have about 25 folks who had said that they would like to meet off-campus or off-site. So those numbers are only going to go up the next 4 to 6 weeks, which says two things. One, we need help registering folks in the back after services. Okay, after services, can you put that slide up there about where to go to register to help us to serve after any worship service, any and all that you could help? We need help to get those folks registered, and that's where you go. Want to take a picture of that. I'll give you just a second because I got a second slide that has a link on it. Obviously, from the numbers that I just shared with you, we need additional facilitators. We need additional, okay? We get them. So if you are available at a different time frame than maybe your own group and you can help, okay? I'm going to trust it. Let's go on to that next slide. I think it's the one that I needed.
This changes everything? Address, email address?
I'm looking for the Serve FPU.
Nope. There it is. It's right there, the second one.
Second one. There you go. Second one, okay? Let us know if you can help us facilitate. Just go online and sign up, and I'll get it, and I'll get in touch with you and let you know what the group's going to look like. What you need to realize is most of the groups on campus, because they're large, and we don't want to put strangers in a small room by themselves, very intimidating. We're going to do that in settings, in venues that fit the size of the group. Let's say that they're 150. Well, we'll probably put them either upstairs and open up the area, or in this half or in that half, and put out tables. So when I say you'll be facilitating a group, there'll be somebody in the room to moderate, open it up, video shows come back, take you to the page for the discussion questions, and then you'll meet in your group around the table. That's how most of that will take place here on campus. The next area that I'm getting a lot of questions about, how do we handle those in the existing groups that cannot afford the $49? They cannot afford the $49. I can only give you the personal experience of what happened in my class last week and this week. Last week, I stood up in front of my class and I said, if you could help someone who cannot afford the $49, would you see me after class? That was a bad mistake because I got overloaded. Folks handed me checks. They handed me cash. And then the light bulb came on and said, just tell them to go to Long's bookstore and buy as many kits as they want and bring them to me, okay? And bring them to me, okay? I don't know how many kits that I have now. I have them locked up in a storage room, but it's in, I do know this, I've had more than $1,000 handed. Here's what I'm saying to you, for the most part, there may be some exceptions. If you will let your class know some people are going to need help in this room, okay? Go to the bookstore and buy as many as you can afford. Get those to me, and then in 2 or 3 weeks, I will let the class know that some of you can't afford this, okay? And some of your own class, okay, out of their own pockets, willingly have purchased the kits. And I think that their gifts are going to meet the needs. That's how I would go about it. It gives a chance for community really be developed and to meet the needs of one another. And it certainly has worked in my group, all right? I might encourage you, it's highly probable over 9 weeks that a guest will walk in. Maybe it's somebody's mother visiting from Atlanta. I mean, guests are going to walk in. If I were you, I'd get a couple of extra kits with a workbook and put maybe the class name on it. That way, when a guest shows up, you can hand them the workbook for the day. They can take notes and then give it back to you at the end of the class so you can use it for the next guest. You might want to have a few extra along the way. Also to remind you, we are so blessed. What a great privilege and opportunity. Dave Ramsey will be with us launch weekend, September 15th and 16th. What a blessing we have. Let's see. FYI, then we'll go into questions. While we are doing FPU, either the 6 weeks of the legacy or 9 weeks and the rest of the adults, our kids and our students will both be doing a 6 weeks version of the same while we're doing. What a great thing to say to families and couples. While I'm learning, my kids are learning as well. And then in terms of our Brazilian and our Hispanic ministries, between those, they have 20 to 25 off-campus groups. They meet in their groups off-campus. And we're having, more sign up to get into those existing groups. They will be participating, and they will be going through a 6 weeks version in Spanish during that period of time. So this is an all-out effort to try to get this important information into the lives of our people to see great transformation as we move forward. Okay? Now, I'm going to stop. David's going to come, and for the next few minutes, if you've got questions about anything David said or anything related to the details to FPU, we're here to try to answer those questions. Okay? All right? Speak loud. It's a big room.
Yes, sir. You said it was going to start on Sunday, the 16th, but for those of us who have classes on Saturday night, will that be the 15th?
Yes. September 15th, 16th. Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to wait until the 22nd to do your week one, it's really going to be your call. Okay?
We were planning on the 15th.
Yeah, that's fine. Dave will be here that night, so it's a good start. Okay? Good.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Jimmy. There was some confusion about when, it may be the reason that there's not any more people that are registered in home groups is that it's not exactly clear how you tell the people when you buy the kit or at the registration that you're going to be in a home group. Because I know when I registered as a leader, they said, well, you're going to be doing it in your home group. And I hadn't heard anything about it even at that time. And so there was no place for me or even the people in our group to say, we're going to do it, here in our home group. So how do we let you know where we're going to do it?
Well, you're talking about in facilitating a group. Yes. Okay. I'd have to look. It's been weeks since I looked at the link that you had to go to register your availability to help. Outside of I'm not talking about your regular group. We're assuming if you're a Tuesday night at home group, that's when you'll meet, because that's when you meet now.
Right, but the issue is that the people who are in my group bought their kit or haven't bought their kit, but they haven't told you specifically.
Yeah, they have. If they're in your group, when does your group meet? That's when they're in. I mean, unless you move your group.
But do you need to know they're in our group?
No, I'm assuming they're in an existing group, they're staying in it.
Okay.
Yeah, if the existing groups are staying in as the existing groups. We're not dissolving, changing, adding to them, okay? We're creating dozens and dozens and dozens of new groups for folks who are not in small groups at all, okay? Great.
Yes, sir.
Quick question about, are you sending people who register to existing home life groups?
Are we sending newly registered folks to existing life groups? No. Everyone that's being driven to the back of the worship center is signing up for a new group. A new group. We're letting the existing groups kind of stand on their own, okay?
Yeah, and
Good
part
question.
of the reason for that is, I alluded to it a while ago, I don't want new people coming into a group that's been meeting a long time, and it's obvious everyone knows each other real well, and I'm the odd man or odd woman out. Does that make sense? Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure.
Is it okay for us to invite new people to our home life group to do this, or would you rather send them to a new?
No, the answer to that is it depends. This is somebody that's a friend that you know would be comfortable in the group and mesh into the group in a healthy fashion. The group would receive them. By all means, invite them to an existing relationship. That's good. But if you're not so sure, maybe the group's not as healthy as it should be yet, and then drive them to sign up for a different group at a time that fits their schedule.
Yeah.
Okay? I can't answer because existing relationships could really matter. Okay?
Yes, in the back.
You mentioned some of the deficiencies in coverage. If we had signed up to be a facilitator, do we already have a group assigned? Will we set any information on that? Or?
If you have signed up to be a group facilitator for one of the new groups, okay, then when you did that, you told me when you wanted to do that. You told me. Let's say you said 10 o'clock Sunday morning, okay? That's where you are. Right now, we don't know where you're going to be, okay? But you will have a group, it may be that meets around a table, okay? But you will have a group. You could just probably call my office and Donna could tell you, okay? David?
Just a quick question on logistics. For those new groups, especially those on site, there was a question one I had personally that people looking, when will they know where those groups will be?
Okay, we need 2 or 3 more weeks to get them developed. But again, right now, in 2 weeks, out of almost 500 people that have signed up, we have 23 that have asked for off-site. Okay. Now, we'll get to that, but it may be another couple of weeks before we get that information out to them anywhere. Mark?
What's the plans if there being a transition? We've got to start this with Horizons West, people who maybe started in a group here but are going out there. Is there plans for Horizons West to be going through this?
Horizon West is not going through FPU. They are not going through FPU, okay? I'm not sure what he's going to do in the small groups. Probably week number 1 of their first official service, September 29-30, will be a visionary message from Chris. And then the second week, the first weekend in October, when we begin an 11-week series through the book of James, he will begin an 11-week series through the book of James. And my guess is the off-site small groups for him, it will be sermon-driven in terms of discussion and questions. Okay? At some point in time, they may come back and do FPU, but we think a lot of these folks are going to be new, unchurched, and unsaved, and we simply did not want to say, thank you for coming to church. Let's talk about your money for the next 9 weeks. We didn't want to do that.
Expectations to get a lot of people wanting to go to that first service just to see the vision, and then that may pull from some of the.
Okay, video will go on. Okay, and I guarantee you the video will go on and the discussion will go on. It will, it'll happen.
Jim, right back there. Someone else was back here? Yep, there you go. What's the definition of a legacy group? It is a group of people who are north of 65 who are seeking to pattern more of their lives around Jesus. It's a group of people that have hit the next stage of their life that want to be together, and as they are together in a small or medium-sized group, are seeking to pattern even more of their life around Jesus. Does that help? Okay, great.
Can you go back to the slide that had the 2 links? The bottom link to serve an FPU, that bottom link, you can go there and register. Shouldn't have a problem. If you do, just email my office. Sir, then they've changed the nomenclature for me. Evidently, then it's the top one. Okay, if not, just call my office and tell Donna this is the time that I would like to do it. Okay. Additionally, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I signed up online to do an off-site group at my house to do it, and I haven't heard anything. So
Okay.
that's why I just happened to hear about this from somebody today, so I don't know if it actually went through, if you got my information, if it's not needed.
Yeah, if you signed up online to facilitate an off-site group, then I feel very sure. Where is Cindy? There's Cindy. Cindy.
I didn't even get a response.
So, yeah, so she signed up to facilitate an off-site group. She wants to know whether or not the registration went through for her because she never got a response.
Okay. That would have come from Donna probably, but you can email either myself or Donna, and we can help you with that this week.
Tell them the email address.
Actually, let me help you. I have my computer, so let me help you.
Her email is on the back of the sheet that you got from David's notes.
Yep.
As well. Good question. Yes, sir.
If somebody misses a class, can they go to another one to make it up?
They can if they miss a class, but what may be easier, once people get their kits, what we're going to tell you later is encourage them inside the workbook is to go to FPU Central and sign up, register. Once you register on FPU Central, you have access to all 9 of the videos. So they can watch them on their own and stay up. Okay, again, the ones that we're doing here are edited 10 to 12 minutes, but nothing is compromised that, by way of filling the blank in the workbook in that editing. Okay, but again, we will eventually post when all the groups are meeting, so if you normally go on Sunday and you missed it, you could come Monday, you could come Wednesday, you could come Friday, you could come Saturday and catch it up.
Okay, I think we need to wrap it up for the day. If you have any other questions, Jimmy and I will be up here. If they're really hard and difficult questions, I'll be glad to give you Jimmy's cell number. And
Evidently, I did a terrible job because you didn't get one question and I got all the questions, so I must not have done a good job at all.
Okay, that's it. God bless you guys. Thanks so much for coming today.